for Ivy Tech Community College, the Center for Instructional Technology. Joining me behind the scenes, helping to facilitate the question box, is Dr. Kara Monroe. So she'll be able to try to answer questions in the question box at the same time as I'll be also trying to answer your questions as we go through this content. So welcome, and let's get started. Like I mentioned just previous moments earlier, we are talking about how to add content to the IvyLearn environment. So one, we're going to talk about the buttonology, how to add an announcement, how to add different types of content areas. But I also want to talk, as we go through this presentation, how to organize that content and how to plan for how you're going to build your courses in IvyLearn. And it's going to take a little bit of thought. And there's several different ways that you can add this content, but there's also some different strategies that we want to make sure that we're implementing, such as always adding a due date, okay, and how we build those throughout the course as we're adding content. And the importance of that, how that translates into students, and how when we set that due date, it reaches out to not only the course calendar, but also to the to-do lists, and it really empowers the notification system. It really drives the whole system, and it also improves student retention and engagement with the course content. So there's a lot to take in and absorb. So we're going to learn how to push some buttons, and we're going to also kind of think about how we're going to implement this in the future. Okay, so let's go into the live environment. Let's log into IvyLearn. And you're welcome to try to follow along or just watch the presentation. It's up to you. Remember, when we log into IvyLearn, we go into ivylearn.ivytech.edu, and you enter in your credentials that you use when you log into My Ivy, formerly known as Campus Connect. By default, we open up to this dashboard page. And today I've got two different samples for you. So we have, I have a course that's kind of set up with our statewide course template. I really like working with the course template because it kind of allows me as a new learner in IvyLearn to just learn how to plug in some areas. It helps me to organize my content very easily. So we do have this version. I'm going to just open that up for you, and let's take a quick overview just as a reminder what that course template looks like. So you'll remember this has little icons that leads us into those modules, and modules are equivalent to what we formerly known as class sessions. And if you think about this, a class session or a module in the traditional classroom, when you prepare all your materials for class, you might have a file folder or a section in your notebook with all that day's activities. That's kind of what a module is, or even a class folder or a class session. It's like the content that you're going to use for that particular class session. So just kind of think of it as in those terms. When we do this, we also have a syllabus in this course template that's already set up for you, and you just add your contact information. That is part of our college policy for all of our faculty. We want students to be able to contact us, so we always want to be posting our contact information. We always want to be posting our syllabus document. We always want to also be setting up our account profile to help build that retention as well. So those are some of the things that this template can provide for you. Okay. All right, so that's what it looks like when we use that course template. And if you remember, when we talked last time, we can load this course template from our Commons area. The other class that I have is just a brand new Sandbox shell. It's completely empty. It's wide open for me to create my own content. There's nothing in here. You'll notice there's all kinds of selections down here on the left-hand side of the module. Okay, I don't want to get into too much of transitioning the content, but I just want you to know when we start building this content, we have the option of using that course template or starting completely from scratch. I see that Lucinda has a question. Can we go to the Commons and get this template, or do we need to request a developmental shell from you for a specific course? Okay, so there are a couple different things here, Lucinda. If you're building a course that's outside of our online library of statewide courses, so the Center for Instructional Technology maintains over 300 courses built specifically for the online environment that can be also used in a traditional and a hybrid classroom. we're taking care of that. If you have a traditional class that you're teaching and you want to kind of start transitioning your content over, then you can request a developmental shell, okay, from your online technology coordinator. So if you're teaching, we'll just say underwater basket weaving 101, and you need a shell for that, then you can request that from your OTC. You can also, once you have that developmental shell, you can go into the Commons area yourself, and when you go to the Commons, it's on the Global Navigational Toolbar on the left-hand side of the page. That's interesting. Okay. All right, and you want to go down here and you want to make sure that Show Public Resources is turned off. So we click that little link and we turn that over and we turn the public resources off. So now we just see Ivy Tech content. And here we have the statewide template for either online courses or the traditional course template. They're very, very similar. Okay, so you just select one of these by clicking the title. You identify the course, and then you just click Import into Course. So that's how you would start your developmental shell based on the course commons and how to import that. So that's one opportunity. Okay. The other thing you can do is you can start from scratch. So let's go back into those developmental shells, my demo shells, and let's see what that looks like. Okay. All right, so when we click on a blank shell, okay, you still have the same items on your course menu. So for example, if I want to create an announcement, I can click on the announcement page, and this is Buttonology. In every content area, when we're adding content, we'll have this plus sign, so add, and then the item. So this is add an announcement. So when I click add announcement, I get the text box editor. Okay, I place my cursor within the text box editor. I enter my message. I have to give it a topic or title. I can add a file to attach. I can delay the posting, which remember in our former LMS, we can just tell them we want it to become available to students at a certain time. We can allow students to must post something before seeing all the replies, because remember, in this announcement tool, it's actually very interactive. Students can answer questions in the announcement page, and students can read and give feedback. So the example we've used before is if I want to set up a study session, so I'm going to be available online to prepare for the midterm. I'm going to post an announcement saying, I'm going to be available, which day works better for you? I can do, Friday morning, or I can do Saturday morning, or I can do Monday afternoon. And then students can reply back to that announcement letting me know what the time fits best for them. Okay? I can enable a podcast feed, and I can also allow liking. So the thumbs up like we do in Facebook, I like it, I don't like it. You can also allow for that little icon to be established here on the announcement page. Once I've set up that announcement, I click Save. Okay, pretty straightforward. And now I've created my announcement. Here's the reply button so students can reply back to me. Okay, that's how I create an announcement. Now remember, all of our content is going to be housed in a module. So we have an opportunity here for working from a blank canvas, completely from scratch. I can click the modules page, and I can add all of my modules. So to add any content area, again, we're going to go that plus button, so add module. I click that button. I give the module a name. Okay, I can lock it or I can make it available. Okay, so I can set a date. add module. Okay, I've now added that module. It doesn't have any content within it, but I do have a module set up. I can, if I know what all of my modules are, for example, so say I'm going to recreate my IvyYC 110, that online faculty certification course. I know kind of I have 5 modules in that class. I can click module again. I give it a name. Okay. I can add a prerequisite. So a lot of times when I'm doing a training module, for example, I want students to complete Module 1 before we move to Module 2. So I can actually add a prerequisite. This is the equivalent to adaptive release. So when I add a prerequisite, I can say I want them to complete getting started Module 1 before they move to Module 2. And I can click Add Module. So now I get a message that before we can start Module 2, Module 1 needs to get started. Okay, so this is how I can build my modules individual piece by piece. If I go into my course, and as I said, there's no content within my modules. I just have module naming conventions right now. If I go into the other course where I'm using that statewide template, for example, when I click on modules, I kind of have some content areas already built in. So you'll know just I have module 1, and in each module I have an overview built in. This is where I start building my learning activities like a discussion board, an assignment, a quiz, and then I wrap it up, so what are the next steps? So this is kind of nice guidelines based on Quality Matters, which is the national rubric for how to align content with assessment, and also a national rubric on best practices in navigation. So the instructional designers have kind of put this together for us. So now if I go into Module 1, I go into my overview, okay, it kind of prompts me to fill in some of the blanks. And if I want to update a page, I just click this Edit button. And when I click Edit, I can now just place my cursor here in this content area, so I give the module overview, and then I can give my objectives. So I can list out the objectives, what we're going to do in that particular module. And after I've made those updates, I click Save. And now I'm ready to move into the next content area. So let's go to the next page. I can now enter a learning activity of my choice. Okay, so that could be a discussion board. That can be any type of quiz or an assignment that I want to create. Okay. I can add that here. I can also edit this document. When we're creating an assignment, for example, so if we're creating a discussion board, I can go into the discussions area. And this is what that looks like. And again, I'm going to click that plus button. And this is always there. Anytime you add content, whether you're using the statewide module or you're using the a blank course, that is always there. Those content areas are always there. I enter in my discussion board question. Discussion boards aren't just for the online or hybrid courses. You can actually use these in your traditional courses as well. This is a great way to allow the conversation to continue outside of the classroom. It gives those shy folks in the back who don't like to speak in public a chance to add to the conversation. And it also allows those talkative people to participate as much as they would like. So this is a great way when we don't have enough time in the classroom to really have a good debate or discussion to allow students to be able to do that in all of our delivery formats. When we do the discussion board, we can choose a file to add to that. We want to make sure that we allow threaded replies so people can reply to it. I really like this feature with the discussion boards. Typically, when we set up a discussion board, we ask the student to post an original thought or original response, and then also to reply back to at least 2 other students in the course. Okay, we want to build that discussion. We want them to be interacting with each other. It's very important, especially in the online environment, to build that peer-to-peer learning community. A lot of times, students have the tendency to read someone else's post and they kind of mimic that in some way. With this particular tool, when I say users must post before seeing replies, this ensures that the student is giving an original post, their own thought and reaction to that particular question before they can interact with other students in the class. So I know I've seen several of my online faculty on the call with us today, and I think you'll really like that particular tool. I can allow a podcast feed. Discussion boards are usually graded. That's usually what kind of motivates our students to participate. And again, I can allow that liking, so that thumbs up or the thumbs down. I can make this a group discussion. Because it's a graded forum, I need to give it points possible. I can tell it how I want this to display in the Grade Center. I can give it an assignment group. Okay, so I'm going to give it a new group name. And I want this new group to be called Discussion Boards. Now, when I give this assignment a new name, this is kind of those categories that you would see in your Grade Center. So you might have exams, assignments, lab activities, discussion boards, essays. So you can enable those groups similar to what you're doing in the categories when you set up your gradebook centers. So I'm going to call this my discussion board group. And I'm going to add that group. Okay, so I've now created that. So this particular item goes under my discussion board category. I can assign this to everyone in the class or to specific individuals. I can set my due date here. Okay, so I'm going to say this is going to be due, we're going to try to work on our summer class here, and that is right in my way. So this is May. Classes start, well, I believe, on I want to say the 15th. So I'm going to have my first discussion board due on that Sunday. Someone asked in the question box, can you set how and when this is available? I sure can. I can make this particular item available from this date to this date. I can add that. I can make that perfectly available. Now, at this point in time, I can save and publish, or I can save. When I save it, it does not make that available to students. So you remember that publish button is what we use when we're trying to make a course available or an item available to students. So that can trip you up. So I'm going to go ahead and save and publish so this item is available to my students. Okay, and you'll see that this is currently published. If I really am not finished with this item yet, I can say unpublish. So that's how you can manage that. That's how we add a discussion board. Okay, let's see. We're going to add, where do we want to go next? Let's talk about the syllabus document. So when it's blank, oops, I'm actually in the template. So this is, we'll start with the template first. This is where we're at. With the statewide template, again, this is built on Quality Matters. This prompts you to enter in your faculty picture, your faculty contact information. And remember, this is a requirement that the college asks us to do. It's built on, again, not only Quality Matters standards, but studies in retention. Identifying yourself with a picture to your students helps them make a connection with who you are. You're not just a blank face. Your contact information. The syllabus usually asks for your instructor supervisor, the Ivy Tech's help desk support. These are items that students of all modalities, and no matter what type of course they're taking, need access to. Your Ivy Tech online learning support people, they help students no matter what course they're in, so they're a great resource for both students and faculty to be available to. the disability support services, contact information, all great information that you need in your classes. The required text and materials, you want students to not only be able to know what books they need, but there's also this nice link directly to our online bookstore where students can order books. Okay. You would enter in your course outline of record. So there's lots of information here that you can update. And how do we do that? We're just going to click this Edit button up here on the right-hand side. Okay, so when we click Edit, this first area is kind of a table. So I can highlight my insert picture here. And I click this little icon. It looks like a little mountain. It's a little. This is the icon for adding an image. When I click that, I can select my picture from Canvas or Flickr. I can do it from a lot of different ways. I can cut and paste that picture in. So I'm going to go to Flickr really quickly. I can select a picture. Once I've selected my picture, I click Update. I can resize it by using the handlebars in the right-hand corner to something reasonable. Okay, so there's my picture. And then I just enter in my name, my phone number, and I just highlight that. And I can just scroll through this whole content area, updating this information. Once I've done that, I click Update Syllabus. Okay, and there I've updated my syllabus document. Now remember, the syllabus area on your course menu, it's not only just a content area, it's also a functional tool. Okay, so if I scroll down through my syllabus document, all the way down here to the bottom of the page, there's this section called Course Summary. Okay, the course summary has all of your assignments that you've created in your course. So far in this particular course, I have added my discussion board, right? I've given it a due date. Here's the discussion board item. I can click on that item, and it takes me right to that discussion board. So students can access their course materials and content through this syllabus area. The more content, the more assignments that I add to my class, the longer that course summary becomes. Okay, so this is not only a content area, but also a functional tool. That's the syllabus document. I'm going to go ahead and click on my dashboard again because I'm going to go into my blank course. I want to show you what that looks like. So when I go into my course where I'm building my content from scratch, if I go into that syllabus area, you'll see that I don't have any information here, but I still have this course summary area. So I have a placeholder for my course syllabus. I also have an area that's going to track all of those assignments that I add. Now, when I click the Edit button again, this is how I'm going to add content. I want to caution you to be careful. I don't recommend cutting and pasting. And I know those syllabus documents can get very, very lengthy, okay? But especially if you're copying from Blackboard, to copy, highlight in Blackboard and from a text box and to post that here is not recommended. Blackboard has a lot of bugs and junk and formatting issues. I don't recommend it. It's very bad. I know it's a lot of typing, but if you're going to do it, I would say type it directly in to this course syllabus content area. Worst case scenario, I would say you could do it from a Word document. I want to point out to you, though, that I would use the default settings, okay? And I wouldn't be changing a lot of colors, and I wouldn't be changing a lot of font sizes, and I would use this area called the paragraph and the headers, okay? So this is set up for accessibility purposes, okay? This is set up so screen readers can read the content easily, okay? The colors, when you use a lot of colors in your text, it becomes very difficult for those who have vision issues to be able to read that clearly. Okay, so I would start off with my header. I'm going to say my header 2. I'm going to say, contact information. When I scroll down here, you'll notice that it automatically changes to paragraph. I can enter in my information, my contact information here. Okay. When I'm ready for the next section, I can add another header. And you just want to be consistent with this. So I'll add my COR here. You know what the syllabus documents are like. So this is the best way to do that. I'm not saying you can't do it the other way. I'm just saying for the best results, this is what I would recommend. You click Update Syllabus, and now you've recreated that content. Okay. If you want, I had a question earlier too. When you're using the statewide syllabus template and you have a regional addendum, and I know several of you do, you can just simply do that by clicking Edit and then adding that addendum to the bottom of the content area. Okay, so that's still available to you. You're able to customize that to fit your needs. Okay. You can, for example, one way that you can approach this is you can build it module by module. Okay, so you can build your content for each class session. Well, kind of like I'm preparing for each class session, whether that's in a traditional format, hybrid, or online. Or I can, if I know, for example, that I'm going to use 5 discussions throughout the semester, I can go right into that content area and I can say Add Discussion. And I can even, as I'm kind of outlining this content, I can kind of just add my title. So I want to make sure that I'm giving it great information. So Module 1, I want to say Introduce Yourself. Okay, so that's going to be my first discussion board topic. I'm going to enter the discussion question. I'm going to allow threaded replies. I'm going to make it graded. I'm going to allow liking. I'm giving it a points possible. I'm going to assign it to discussions. So remember, when I don't have a grading category already established, I can create a new group. And I want to call this my discussion board group. Add group. I can allow peer reviews if I need to. I can assign it to anyone and everyone or specific individual users. I can add a due date. I can set a range for that, and then again I can either save it or save and publish. Now because I'm just kind of using this as a placeholder, I'm kind of building my outline in my course, I'm just going to click Save at this time. I'm not going to publish it, because what I'm doing right now is I'm just setting up my discussion board topics. So I'm going to go ahead and add another discussion board. I'm giving it a topic. I insert my question, or I can come back and do that later. I'm going to allow threaded replies. I'm going to let it to be graded, so I'm going to go ahead and set that up. I'm going to be consistent in my grading. This is going to be 20 points. It's going to stay in my discussion board category. So my first discussion board was due on the 21st. I'm going to make this one due on the 28th. And again, I can either save and publish or save. What I'm doing is I'm kind of building my outline. I know that I'm going to have in my particular IvyYC 110 course, I'm going to have 5 discussion boards that match my modules. Okay? I'm just sending those placeholders, so I'm kind of building all my discussion boards at one time. So Deborah has a great question. If I set up all these discussion boards, how do I get them attached to the right module? Let's take a look at that. It's an excellent question. So I'm going to go into modules. Okay, and we know I have module 1, so I'm going to click add. I'm going to add something to my module. So I'm in my module here. I'm going to click the plus sign. Okay, I'm now going to add my discussion board. And I'll see I've already prepared. I've created my discussion board 1, and I've preparing your online course. So I'm going to select my discussion module 1, and I add that item. Okay, so you now know that I'm in module 1, and here's my discussion board item. So that's how I add that. Okay, so I know in module 2, I'm going to use that other discussion board. I click again right across. I'm in the module. I'm going to click the plus sign. I'm going to select module 2. I'm in my discussion board area, and I click add item. So I now have module 1, I have module 2, and then I have discussion boards under both of those areas. Okay. Now what I don't have yet is a module overview, because I'm building this from scratch, remember? So we want to make sure we're telling our students you know, what that is. You know, what am I talking about here? So to create a content area page, okay, to create an item, which is like we did in our previous LMS, we're going to create a page. Okay, so over here on our course menu, this is a page. Pages are content areas that are not usually graded. They're kind of an overview. It's kind of the bridge between an assignment and, you know, navigation. Pages are where you can put content and educational resources that are part of your course, but don't necessarily belong to an assignment. Okay, or you want to refer to multiple assignments. This, you can place text, video, links to other files. You can even make links to other pages. Okay, pages can also be a public-facing tool, which works as a wiki. Okay, so let's add a page. So I'm going to click Add Page, and I'm going to say Module 1 Overview. So on this page, I'm going to insert a brief overview. And I would be more articulate than I am in this demonstration. I would list my objectives, and I might even add my reading assignments. I can actually add links as well. So if I want to send you to IvyLearn general information, I can highlight that content and I can hyperlink. So I'm going to link. I'm actually going to send this, whoops, darn it. Well, we'll send it to the instructor guide. So you have your link to where that's located if it's online. Okay, and now this is an active link, so students can actually click on that. Once I've created my page of content, I either save and publish or save, and I'm going to go ahead and save and publish. Now, most likely, the pages can get very lengthy, so I'm not going to publish this pages area to my student. Students are only going to see this content within with the context of the module. So if I go back into my module, which I'm building from scratch, okay, I now want to make sure that I've enter my overview. So again, I'm in my module that I'm creating. I click the plus button. Okay, and I'm going to select a content page. And you'll see here's my page, Module 1 Overview. I click Add Item. I can reorder these because I really want my overview to be before my assignment. So I just click on this link. You'll see that my cursor turns into a four-way directional cross. I just drag and drop. Okay. Now you'll notice here's that Publish button. So not only do I have to publish each item within this module, okay, but I also need to publish the module itself. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at the student view because I want to stress to you how important publishing the content is. So remember, when we go to the student view, and this is your best friend, especially when you're building content for the first time in IvyLearn, we go to Settings. This is our course navigational menu. I go to Settings. It's always located at the very bottom of the list. Okay, and over here on the right-hand side in our sidebar content area, here's the student view. I click Student View, and you notice that some of these items disappear, like and some of them are still available. When I click on Modules, I can find modules. Whoops! Oh my gosh! Wow! I don't know what just happened to my screen. I apologize. Okay, so you'll see right now the whole modules content area is missing for me. Like, where is it? Okay, so this is the student view. Students can't see it. Let's leave that student view and let's investigate. So we're going to go back into that modules area, and here's another hint. You see how it's grayed out? It's not necessarily available to students at this point in time. So when I go over here, you'll see Module 1 is unpublished. Module 2 is unpublished. Therefore, that content area did not appear on the student view of the menu. Okay, so let's go ahead and make both of our modules published. Okay, and remember, students cannot actually enter Module 2 until they complete Module 1. So now let's go back into that student view. We do that again. We go to Settings on our course menu, and over on the right-hand side of the page, here's our student view. Okay, you'll now see that Modules appears in the student view on the course menu. And when I click on Modules, I now see Module 1 and Module 2. It also says that you cannot start Module 2 until you finish Module 1. Okay. And you see there's my due dates, and here's also the points possible. Okay. Depending how you set up your menu, students can go through the module. So I see my overview. I click the next, and here's my link. I can go out to my web page. Okay, so that's how we build a link directly into that content area. I happen to link out to the Canvas instructor guide, so that's what's going to open up here on this page. Okay. It opens up in a separate tab, so I'm just going to click back over into my module. To go to the next slide, I click Next. And you'll see this, now the student can complete that discussion board right within that module and that content. And we can also set this up in a sequential learning order. Okay, so we do have an overview of the module, what we're going to talk about in this class session. We're going to see what our reading and that type of pre-assignments are going to be, and then we get into the assessments and the actual assignments. And we can set those up in any order that we feel as instructors fit into the student learning. Okay, what's appropriate for that learning opportunity. Okay. I can also, as a student, if I'm here in my module, or I log in, it opens up to my home page, I can go right into the discussions. Okay, so this is also another area that I can go to. I can access my discussions that way. I can also, remember when we set our due dates, as a student, I can go to my calendar. I can go to that calendar document. When I go to the calendar, if I go to May, where I've set these up, you'll see that I have assignments on the 21st and also the 28th. Okay? And I'm in student view, so I can't really see these dates, but the student can actually access those here. Okay? I'm not the student, I'm in student view, but it would also, here we go, it just populated. So here's my module 1 and my module 2. These are my assignments. I can click on these areas. It tells me the information. This is the due date. It tells me what course it's in, and then here's my discussion, what the topic is. Okay, this is where my discussion question would be. I click on the name of that, and students can access that assignment directly from the calendar. That's why those assignment due dates are so important. So Susan has a great question. Can you make the readings a prerequisite before doing a discussion? There are some adaptive release rules where you can set up, just like I set up I want to finish Module 1 before I set up Module 2. I do believe there's some advanced adaptive release rules that you can make content available based on assessments. Okay, I believe Kara has added that information directly into the chat box. She's working on putting that link in there, so there will also be a direct link to that information in the guides. So yes, that's possible, and we're going to give you some information on how to find more information about that. Thank you, Kara. Okay. Oh, Mickey has a great question. So how does the discussions where you first require a student to post their original post by Wednesday, and then you require the reply to the other students on Sunday? Okay, there's a couple ways that you can maneuver this. You can break it up. So say I give 10 points for the original post. Okay. And then I give 5 points for each additional student that they respond back to, the minimum of 2 for 20 points. So I can create 2 assignments with due date, so discussion board 1, original post, and I can give that 10 points, and then I can say final response 20 points. Okay, you can do that. You can set up 2 assignments. Not necessarily the best workaround, but that's one possibility. The other thing that I can do is I can create a discussion. So let me get out of student view. I'm leaving the student view. Okay. And I'm going into my discussions area. Remember, this is our breadcrumb trail at the top of the page. So you'll see what class I'm in discussions, and I'm in the module 1. So I just want to go back to the discussion area because right now I'm in an individual forum. Okay, so this is a breadcrumb trail and navigational menu. So I'm going to click on discussions. Okay. All right, I'm going to add a discussion. Okay, and I'm going to give it a title. And I'm going to enter my question. Okay. All right, I can allow the threads. Users must post before seeing replies. Okay, and then I'm still going to give it a due date. Okay, I'm going to give it an available date, when it's available and when it needs to be done. Okay, so you're going to still follow the same rules and regulations as we did on the discussion board when we created the first one. All right. And I'm going to stay consistent. I'm going to make that due on a Sunday. Actually, I'm going to go into April. Wait, June. Sorry, June 4th. Okay, so I've now added that. If I go into my calendar document, go back into my calendar document. Come on. Getting a little technical glitches today. I can actually set a due date here on my calendar. So we have the due date. We know for May 21st and 28th. So let me just go into, I'm going to get rid of all of these other calendar views. So we can see this clearly. I'll go to my due date here. All right. So here it is, my introduce yourself. And that's going to be, I'm having this due on Sunday. Say I want them to do their first post, though, on Thursday. I can go here into my calendar and I can create an event. I can give it the due date that I want. I give it a location if it's due in a particular way. So I give it the class name. I can do more options. Okay, if I want to, that takes me into the forum. But in this particular case, I just want to, and I just messed that up. I want to just have a placeholder here, a notification. And I cannot type today. Sorry about that. And then I click submit. Okay, so you'll see here I've now created a notification for my student, but there's not necessarily an assignment attached to that. Okay, so this is a placeholder on the calendar. It will still appear on their to-do list. So when we go, remember when we go to the dashboard, by default the course opens up, IvyLearn opens up to the dashboard. You will actually see on their to-do list, they'll see that discussion board requirement, although it's not attached to the Grade Center. And that's the second workaround. So you can create two different assignments, and you give two different points for a discussion board if you want to do it that way, or you can put a placeholder on the calendar as well as in the instruction to the students in the discussion board. You know, your original post is due on Thursday, your final two posts are due, you know, by Sunday. Susan asked the questions, what do you do if they only reply? How is it graded? Well, that's the same question that we have in all of our discussion boards, even in our current format. It's how you set up your rubric, it's how you set up the grading and those grading requirements. So if a student would only reply back to other students and not actually post an original post, well, I wouldn't give them the full points. But if you remember, too, when we go into that discussion board area, when we go into discussions and we set that up, you can actually make them post in our options here. This is that users must post before seeing replies. And when we use this, users must post before seeing replies, it requires that student to post an original thought before they can even see the other students' responses. So that's the workaround too. You want to make sure you're giving clear instructions to your students, and then you also have this nice new tool where you can make them actually post before they can even reply to other students as well. Okay, thank you. That's a good question. Great question. Okay, so this is kind of how we build, courses from scratch. You are welcome to do that. You can see that it's very simple when you're just adding an item. We're adding a discussion when we do that, or if we build an announcement, we build an assignment. Anytime that we're adding content, it's always add. You see that plus sign, and then whatever the content item is. So same thing with quizzes, plus quiz. Okay, so anytime you're adding any content, it's always that. How you organize that content, how you build that content, there's multiple ways to do that. We can add and build content from our calendar. We can add and build content within each course category, course content area. We can also build it from the modules. So if you think about class sessions, okay. Ultimately, though, you're going to use this module section to contain the content for the week or the class session. Okay, so if you're meeting Tuesdays and Thursdays in a traditional class, you would have your modules labeled by date, or you can even still, module Tuesday, module Wednesday, or modules 1 and 2. However you want to do that naming convention, it's up to you, but you want to make sure that you're containing that content in a logical way that students know where they're at all times, what's expected of them, and what their learning activities are going to be. Okay. For the first-time user, I highly, highly recommend that course template. And let's take a look at that again. So when I go into my dashboard, I'm going to move over to my other demo, and this one is built with that course template that is based on Quality Matters. And this is really nice because the home page is already created for you, and these are direct links into content areas. Okay, there's a link to the syllabus document. When our instructional designers built this home page and they built it to go straight to the module area, it's because this is the most frequently accessed content in the course throughout the semester. Students are going to need that syllabus document definitely on that first day to understand what's going on in the class, and then they're going to use it as a reference document from that point forward. So it kind of makes sense that students, when they get in the flow of their work, they're going to be going to the content areas. This is where I'm going to get my reading assignments. This is where I'm going to be doing my quizzes. This is where I'm going to be turning in assignments. So it's nice to go to this content area. I click on any one of these links, and you can customize these pictures. That's not a problem. And it's all nicely built for me. It's kind of a plug and chug. I know that Module 1, this is what we're going to be talking about in this particular session. I add those module objectives, again, built on Quality Matters standards. I go to the next area, okay, and I can start building my assignments. Okay, I can add a content area. It works the same way if I go into the modules area directly on my menu instead of going to that home page. Again, if I want to add content, so I'm going to add a question, a quiz, or a discussion, I'm going to go here into that module area. This is an index view. When I click that little plus button, I can now add anything that I want. I can add an assignment, a quiz, a content page. I can add an external link. I can add an external tool. There's all kinds of flexibility here. It's very easy to build content. There's not a lot of clicking from one section to the other. You just have to figure out which one of these tools works best for you under what circumstances. So when I click on, for example, I'm going to create an assignment. I'm going to give that assignment name. Okay, so I've now added an item. This is an essay. It's an assignment. can edit that. I can change the name. When I click on that area, I can enter in my essay requirements. When I scroll down the page just a little bit, this is where I can add how many points. I can give it an assignment group. And again, these assignment groups go right directly correspond with your grading categories. So I'm going to call this new group Essays. I'm going to give it some points possible. I want it to display as 20 points in the Grade Center. I can also select the submission type. And this is kind of interesting. So in a traditional classroom, for example, we don't always have enough computers to go around. So students, it's always nice if you can do an assessment online, because it's usually, unless it's an essay, it kind of gets graded for you, and it automatically populates into your Grade Center, which is kind of nice when we're restricted on time as instructors. But sometimes you want to turn that assignment in on paper, or maybe it's a project. Maybe someone had to build a poster board, or they're going to create graphic design work like a magazine cover, and you want them to turn that in on paper. You can select that. So this indicates that you're not looking for an assignment submission in the system. It also works and corresponds with the Grade Center. And then you can actually select online. So when I select online, this means that the IvyLearn platform is looking for you to submit something electronically, and you have all these different options. I can submit a text or a document. I can submit a website or URL. So in that example, maybe I'm an instructional design student or a web designer, and I'm going to create a web page, and I want to be able to submit that for viewing. Or even if I'm doing research, as I'm a medical student, and I'm going to research careers in the medical field, and I found a resource for that, or I found a documentation about what it means to be a nurse for Greenpeace, and I can provide that link here to fill my assignment. I can also provide a media recording, or I can even do a file upload. Okay, so this is very, very flexible. You can assign it, again, because I'm creating an assignment, I can do it for everyone or a specific group, and I can give it a due date. And then I click, I'm going to save and publish, or I'm going to save. And again, save does not make it available to students, and I click save and publish. All right. So all of this due dates, that corresponds not only with what the students see when they log into the dashboard. So by default, we open up to the dashboard. Those due dates generate this to-do list. Okay, and this is a global view. So the students see they're keeping on track. In each one of my classes, these are the assignments that are due. You see they're in sequential order. Okay. So this drives what the student sees. This helps students stay engaged and know where they are at all times in all their classes. Okay. It also drives what they see on the course calendar. Okay, so we can see a global view, what I need to do. I can also access my assignments. I can access information about that assignment here in my calendar. Okay, it's also a great tool for faculty. Helps us keep track when we're teaching multiple sections of what's going on and what to do. So I can see it here. The students also see it when they go into their courses. Okay. So when they go into their course, there's going to be, when we go into the settings, the student view. Let's click student view here. Okay. It's going to say coming up. So let's go into our calendar view here. And we are going to go into March. Okay, so this will notify the student of the due dates right there on the front page of the courses as those dates become available. Okay, so it fills this sidebar action as well. It also drives the Grade Center. So this is the student view of the Grade Center. Each individual student sees a whole index of all the assignments in the course. It has the due dates. So again, this is keeping our students on track, and this is the view that they see. You can tell that this is a discussion board assignment. This is a discussion board assignment. It builds categories as well. Okay, here's my score. If I'm looking at this from the instructor perspective, those due dates also generate how it's viewed in the Grade Center. So here's the Grade Center. By default, our SIS or banner system will list all of those students over here on the left-hand side. Okay, this is how I see it. Module 1, here's my introduction, here's my preparing my online class, and these just happen to be discussion boards. Right, so it drives a lot of things in the IvyLearn platform. Okay, we've went over a lot of information. I think it's very straightforward. Anytime you see a plus sign, you can add content. Where it gets a little bit more complicated, where you have to kind of spend some time, is trying to organize that content and how you're going to build that. And you have the option of starting with a course template based on Quality Matters, or you can build it from scratch. Think about that. If you think about if you're going to create a lesson plan or even a speech, you have an outline of what you're going to be teaching. And you know, as experts in your field, you know, kind of the rhythm of your classroom, regardless of the modality that you're teaching in. So you kind of know what those topics are, how those objectives break down. So you just want to organize that content in a way that students can see that. And the number one thing I want to just caution you again, remember to publish. Publish every item and publish those modules. Okay, so today we've talked about how we're going to add content. We're getting into the next phase of our training. Tomorrow we're doing a function junction, on Friday, function junction, about the content editor. There's a little functionality in there that's some new things we want to share with you. Dr. Monroe will be directing that particular session. So that's coming up on Friday. And then after spring break, we'll get into how we actually transition our content, how we use Google Docs for collaborations, and some more advanced tools. So those are the things that are coming up in the future. I thank you for your time. I'll be glad to answer any questions that you may have. Dr. Monroe and I will both stay on the line with you for just another few minutes to answer those questions. Once again, thank you and have a great day.